All right, in the last couple of segments, we've talked about some of the threats posed by the Chinese Communist Party, but there's a whole lot more. Friends, a whole lot more. The threats are growing under this administration, which has only been showing weakness on the world stage. Take just for example, the southern border, where we've seen obviously record numbers of illegal immigrants crossing the border since President Biden took office. But the number of Chinese nationals being encountered on the U.S. southern border is exploding. And like many things coming out of China, that ought to be reason for great concern. Well, joining me now to discuss this is Gordon Chang. He's a distinguished senior fellow at the Gatestone Institute. He's the author of The Coming Collapse of China and the Great U.S.-China Tech War. You can follow him on Twitter or X, whatever it is now, under the handle @GordonG.Chang. You want to be sure to do that. Gordon, welcome back to Washington Watch. Good to see you.
Thank you so much, Jody.
Well, listen, I look at, just for example, I mentioned it briefly, what's happening on the southern border, but just as an example, in 2020, the number of Chinese nationals encountered by U.S. Border Patrol at our southern border was 342. 342 in 2020. So far this year alone, it's over 12,000. What's going on here?
Well, most of the people coming across are who they say they are, and that is they're just desperate Chinese who have given up on their country. But in that number are disturbing individuals. We're seeing packs of males between 5 and 15 in number, of military age, unaccompanied by family groups who pretend not to speak English. We know some of them are performing Chinese military rituals, and we also know that from Border Patrol that some of them have known links to the Chinese military. And so what we are seeing in all probability are saboteurs. These are the guys who are going to be assassinating officials, blowing up power stations, starting wildfires, detonating bombs in shopping centers to create terror. These are the people who are going to wage war on the United States of America.
Wow, and maybe even some bio labs in California, who knows where else. You recently wrote a piece entitled, "Do Not Let China Attack America from America." I think that really is what you're talking about right now. Take this a little further. What do you mean by that?
There are so many different ways that China plans to wage war and actually is waging war on America right now, because China has this doctrine of unrestricted warfare, which means it can do anything it wants. So there's political warfare, which has been going on for decades, Jody. And part of it is we have the Confucius Institutes on university and college campuses. But even more pernicious, we have the Confucius classrooms in our secondary schools. These are nominally run by China's Ministry of Education, but really are run by the Communist Party's United Front Work Department, which means that they are meant to subvert the United States. But also we have the saboteurs. We have that very suspicious lab that was raided in March near Fresno. And there they found about 1,000 white lab mice who were genetically engineered to transmit disease. They found 20 different types of pathogens. This really, I think, is one of those locations where saboteurs were going to go in anticipation of a war to spread disease.
It's horrifying to consider that. And from what I've read on that, we discovered that solely by accident. I mean, we didn't suspect it happening. Who knows how many other places that type of biolab may be occurring throughout the United States. So I do want to go for what you were just referencing about the schools. Previous segment was talking a little bit about that, and I want to go further with you about it. But before I do, the piece that we're referring to, you actually quoted a NATO official who talked about how the CCP intends to win its war on America without fighting us. So this is not just your opinion. We have NATO officials saying the same thing.
Yes. Kerry Gershonik, the official you're referring to, has been at the forefront of warning about China's political warfare campaign against the United States. And he says, and he's absolutely right about this campaign is comprehensive. China is overwhelming us. And clearly, we are not able to defend ourselves. I mean, our FBI is being overwhelmed. Local law enforcement's overwhelmed. State and local governments, federal government, they're all overwhelmed. And really, what we have right now is China being much more influential in the United States than Americans in their own country.
Yeah, so look, we've only got, unfortunately, about a minute left here. But the whole school, my previous guest, Nikki Neely of Parents Defending Education, we were talking about how the Chinese Communist Party is infiltrating K through 12. This is extremely serious with us. So just kind of bottom line, what does the United States need to do right now, real quickly, in the face of these challenges that we're facing from the CCP?
Remove every Confucius Institute, every Confucius classroom, close the remaining 4 consulates, strip the embassy staff in Washington just down to the ambassador, close the Chinese state banks and enterprises, get the Chinese regime out of America because they're winning and we're losing our country.
Yeah, and I wish we had time to go into this, but we have a president that, for all practical purposes, appears to be exceedingly compromised with China,
whose family has received millions of dollars from China. And that's an admission from Hunter Biden from the middle of March, where his spokesperson said they received, quote, good faith seed funds, which is an admission of corruption, because corruption is the only explanation why they would have received that money. And we saw another admission from Hunter Biden just a couple days ago in federal court.
Got to leave it right there. Gordon Chang, thank you so much for joining us on Washington Watch. We're grateful.